Hey friends, I'm so glad to have you here. Today we're digging into a big question that hit me while studying Moses. How are we supposed to have faith like him when he literally spoke to God face to face and yet still doubted him? And if Moses struggled, well, then what chance do we have? Moses' story spans across four major books of the Bible: Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But today we're focusing mainly on Exodus, the second book of the Bible. Historically, Exodus was likely written by Moses himself around 1440 to 1400 BC, and it records the dramatic rescue of Israel from Egypt and their journey to becoming God's chosen nation. Moses starts off with a shaky beginning, abandoned in a basket, raised in Pharaoh's house, and then he flees after he kills an Egyptian. Years later, God appears to him in a burning bush in Exodus 3 and tells him to lead Israel out of slavery. Now, what's wild is that Moses, after literally hearing God's voice, still says, "Who am I that I should go?" Exodus 3:11. What if they don't believe me? Exodus 4:1. And I am slow of speech and tongue. Exodus 4:10. Moses questions, delays, and resists, yet God still uses him. So how do we reconcile that kind of real-time divine interaction with our own faith today? Let's dig into a little bit of a theological exploration here and look at how some respected theologians have unpacked this. John Calvin emphasized Moses' humility, not as a flaw, but as a requirement for true leadership. He writes that God often chooses unqualified men so that his power, not theirs, is what's displayed. Calvin would say Moses' self-doubt wasn't weakness, it was a foundation for trust in God. Matthew Henry, in his classic commentary, points out that Moses' excuses were more about fear than unbelief. He suggests Moses wasn't doubting God's power, but his own role in God's plan, something most of us can relate to deeply. A.W. Tozer adds another layer. He argued that true faith begins where human understanding ends. In his book, The Pursuit of God, he says, "Faith is seeing the invisible, but not with your eyes." And that's pretty convicting when we realize that Moses, even with his physical encounters with God, still had to walk into unknown situations over and over again. Now, C.S. Lewis, while not a theologian in the technical sense, pointed out that faith doesn't rest on what we see. It rests on what we trust to be true. His take aligns with Moses' journey. He didn't stop questioning, but he just kept showing up. Even Elisabeth Elliot noted how obedience doesn't always come from clarity, but from surrender. Moses didn't understand everything, and neither do we, but he obeyed eventually, and that was enough for God to move mountains. From the She Reads Truth and Dwell Differently Bible studies that I've been going through, one theme has really stood out. Faith is a daily decision, not a one-time certainty. Moses had to choose obedience repeatedly, even when his feelings didn't line up with his calling, and so do we. So what does that mean for us today, especially when we don't get burning bushes or thundering voices? Well, here's what I'm learning. Faith isn't about clarity, it's about trust. We want clarity, signs, and certainty, but Moses had all that and still wavered. So maybe faith isn't rooted in what we see, it's rooted in who we know. So God works through our doubt, not around it. Moses wasn't disqualified because of his insecurity. In fact, God used it to show God's strength. Your hesitation doesn't cancel your calling. We have something even Moses didn't, the Holy Spirit living in us. Jesus said in John 16:7 that it's better for us that he goes away so we can receive the Spirit. That means our guidance might be quieter, but it's no less powerful. And finally, you're not alone in your wrestling. If a pillar of the faith like Moses questioned God and still got to see the seas split and nations freed, that's hope for all of us who wonder, can God really use me? He can, and he will. Thank you so much for joining me today.